Samsung has now pulled the plug on the Galaxy Note 7 smartphone after the device is, in fact, kept catching on fire. And today, Samsung now has yet to provide clear answers as to why these phones were overheating. So what happened? To discuss it all, Nick Thompson, a CBS News contributor, editor of TheNewYorker.com, good enough to join us now. We have not heard from the company here,
right.
Nick. Obviously, the initial recall did occur. Replacements were provided. Things didn't go much better with those. And that has been the last of it from the company. If nothing else, what's the strategy there?
Well, the company doesn't know what's happening. I mean, this is the crazy thing about this, is that no one has offered. I mean, if somebody does know exactly what's happening, they haven't said it publicly. From what we know from internal reports, there are hundreds of people at Samsung who are working in labs trying to figure out what's going on. They can't reproduce it. You know, they have all these phones and they haven't been able to get them to set on fire. Whatever is happening is very complex. Samsung's initial theory was that it was a simple battery problem, that one of the suppliers of the batteries had produced a faulty one. You know, for some reason it was exploding, the fail-safe mechanism wasn't working. That turns out not to be true because they replaced the battery and they kept exploding. So Samsung appears to be baffled.
Now, this was a very successful launch initially. It was
absolutely
reviews liked. I mean, it was thought perhaps the iPhone had some real competition with these, in part because of the complexity of the phone itself. Is there a belief perhaps that it's a phone asked to do so much that perhaps whatever battery you put in there just can't do it all?
Well, I think the operating theory is that, yes, Samsung tried to do too much, right? There's the stylus, there's the retina sensor, and you have a very small phone, and you have curved edges, which makes it harder to pack things inside of it, makes it more likely that things will sort of bump up against each other or have too much pressure, or that something will get punctured, right? There's so much going on in the phone that perhaps that led to the problems. On the other hand, you know, once they figure it out, they'll be able to design around it. And presumably, though they will never release another Note, I would imagine, they'll have a phone that has the same feature set.
Okay, so the highly competitive marketplace.
Yes.
Again, they had a footprint that is now eradicated, self-eradicated, I suppose, if you will.
It imploded.
It imploded, yes. But there's also, on strictest and rather basic terms, there's a fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice quality here. If I'm a consumer and I've got money to spend, why on earth would I ever spend it with Samsung going forward?
Well, people have really intimate relationships with their phones, and they really like their phones, and there are a lot of people who will think, okay, this was a problem on the Note 7. This was a faulty product, right? There are a lot of people who bought Toyotas even after there were all the reports of the braking systems that didn't work, right? It is possible for a company that has a long-term relationship with consumers going back through hundreds of products that people have bought, that it will just reestablish it and we will move on past it. This is going to be very hard for Samsung. They're going to lose a ton of money.
I mean, this isn't a failure. I mean, these things were weaponized. When there are warnings made on airplanes that your phone could bring down the aircraft, that's
right. This is
something else altogether.
This is the most catastrophic tech disaster in quite a long time. Samsung hasn't had anything like this. You know, this is the worst thing some people are saying since the sort of the poison Tylenol, right? I mean, this is a disaster. On the other hand, Samsung will still exist as a company in 2 years, no question.
It's interesting, you know, but you mentioned the braking system issues. Toyota did figure out what was wrong, the Tylenol. They figured out what had happened. Really, again, that elephant that remains in the room is the unknown.
I mean, so what Samsung has to do now is they have to figure out what happened. They have to explain it very clearly. They have to have a very generous program with their customers, and then they need to make sure that in the future they certify and test their phones in such a way that this does not happen ever again.
It's a simple checklist.
Yes,
done.
1, 2, 3, go get them.
Problem solved.
Yes, absolutely.
He's here solving problems. Nick Thompson, as always, we appreciate it.
Thank you so much.